Urgent Dallas Cowboys fans, do not miss this. What just happened? You won't believe this one. But before we reveal the big news, make sure to subscribe to the channel because here we bring you daily videos with the latest Dallas Cowboys updates. And to not miss anything, activate the notifications. Hey Cowboys Nation, gather around because today we're diving deep into a story that's been bubbling under the surface, but has now exploded into the forefront of NFL discussions. It's about a figure many of us once cheered for, a guy who was part of the Cowboys' defensive staff for years, and now finds himself at the center of controversy. We're talking about Matt Eberflus, a name that's been making waves, not necessarily for the right reasons, especially after his recent stint as the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. And trust me, this story isn't just about a single game or a bad moment. It's about what this could mean for the Cowboys' season, their strategy, and even their future. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's set the scene. The Cowboys, as we all know, have been battling through a roller coaster of a season. There's been incredible highs, like that dominant performance against certain teams, and crushing lows, especially in their defense, which has struggled to find consistency. This season has been marked by some impressive individual efforts, but also by glaring systemic issues, especially on the defensive side. And right at the heart of this is the recent hiring of Eberflus as the defensive coordinator, a move that initially was seen as a smart comeback story. After all, Eberflus had spent years with the Cowboys, earning respect and admiration. His knowledge of the organization, familiarity with the roster, and reputation for discipline seemed like a good fit to help stabilize a sometimes chaotic defense. But as many of us are witnessing now, things haven't exactly gone according to plan. The narrative has shifted dramatically. What was once seen as a promising reunion has now turned into a major point of concern. And it's not just about one game. It's about the pattern of decisions and the overall effectiveness, or lack thereof, of this defense. The latest loss to the Vikings, for example, was a stark illustration of how this defense is struggling to perform at the level fans and analysts expected. The Vikings, led by their quarterback and offensive scheme, exploited what's been a recurring problem for Dallas. A defense that seems disoriented, unorganized, and sometimes even predictable. Let's start with the core issues that have been swirling around Eberflus' defensive scheme. One of the most debated topics is his stubbornness in trying to force players into roles they're not best suited for. For example, he's trying to convert cornerbacks who excel in man coverage into zone defenders, which is a fundamental misalignment with their skill set. This misjudgment has led to big plays by opponents. But perhaps even more troubling is his decision, or perhaps his inability, to keep his best players on the field consistently. We've seen this pattern before, but the Vikings game really brought it into focus. Take linebacker Kenneth Murray, for instance. Murray, who was expected to be a key piece in the Cowboys' linebacker core, has been a mixed bag this season. But what's baffling is that Eberflus benched him during the game in favor of Logan Wilson. Yet, if you look at the snap counts, Murray still played more than Wilson. Why? Was it just for show, or was there a strategic reasoning behind it? Because the numbers tell a different story. The success rate of the Vikings' offense was nearly 9% higher when Murray was on the field compared to Wilson. That's a significant gap. When the Vikings had Murray out there, their success rate was around 55%, but when Wilson was in, it dropped to about 46.2%. These aren't just small differences. They are meaningful metrics that highlight how Wilson has been more effective in coverage and against the run, two critical aspects of a linebacker's role. And let's not forget, Murray himself has been underwhelming in some crucial moments. There was a play in the third quarter that perfectly encapsulates the issues. The Vikings took the lead with a 1-yard touchdown run by C.J. Ham, and Murray was caught running to a spot where there was simply nothing, an empty space, highlighting a lack of awareness or discipline. Plays like this have haunted him all season long. Yet Eberflus continues to keep him on the field while sidelining players like Wilson, Shemar James, and Marist Liufau, who could potentially bring more stability and productivity. Now, you might be asking, what does this say about Eberflus' overall approach? Well, it points to a stubbornness in his defensive philosophy. His insistence on sticking to certain schemes, even when evidence suggests they are not working, is problematic. Communication breakdowns on third downs are frequent, giving opponents extra opportunities and long-yardage situations that are too often converted. It's as if the defense is caught in a cycle of confusion and miscommunication, and the coaching staff isn't adjusting accordingly. This lack of adaptability is alarming because the NFL is a league that rewards flexibility and quick thinking, especially on defense. Adding fuel to the fire, the Cowboys front office made a controversial decision this season, trading Micah Parsons, one of the team's brightest stars and a game-changing pass rusher. Now, some might argue that this was a necessary move for cap reasons or team-building strategy, but the timing and consequences of that trade have been heavily scrutinized. The loss of Parsons has left a void that's difficult to fill, and the defense has visibly suffered because of it. Since his departure, the pressure on other pass rushers has increased, and the overall pass rush productivity has declined. Eberflus' unit has struggled to generate consistent pressure without Parsons, and that's a major factor in their recent struggles. Let's also consider the broader context. The Dallas Cowboys, despite their defensive woes, still have some talented players and a promising roster. But it's clear that the coaching scheme and player utilization haven't maximized that talent. For example, Jake Ferguson, one of the key offensive players, was mentioned in the original report because of his injury during the first quarter against the Vikings. While that's an offensive note, it's a reminder that injuries are part of the game, and how the coaching staff adapts to those injuries defines a season. The defense, meanwhile, seems to be in a rut, with players like Trevon Diggs, who's been a cornerstone in the secondary, possibly affected by the overall chaos and miscommunication. Reflecting on the Cowboys' recent history, this season looks eerily similar to some of the defensive struggles they faced in previous years. Remember the 2020 season, when the defense was inconsistent and injuries decimated the unit? Or the 2022 campaign, where they relied heavily on Micah Parsons to carry the load. The pattern suggests that when the defense faces adversity or adjustments, the coaching scheme doesn't effectively adapt. That's a concern because NFL success depends on the ability to evolve and respond to opponents' strategies, a trait that unfortunately seems lacking at this moment. But you have to ask yourself, what's next? Given the current trajectory, can Eberflus turn things around? Or is this season already pointing to a need for coaching change? The players, especially those who have been benched or underutilized, are probably feeling the pressure. The fans are frustrated, and the media is raising questions about the future of this defense and perhaps even Eberflus' role within the organization. Looking ahead, the Cowboys still have a shot at the playoffs, but their path has become more treacherous. Their remaining games are now under increased scrutiny, especially considering the strength of their opponents. Beating teams with strong offenses or dynamic quarterbacks will require a defense that's cohesive, disciplined, and adaptable, none of which perfectly describe the current unit. The upcoming matchups against divisional rivals and playoff contenders will be critical, and the coaching staff's ability to make adjustments could determine whether Dallas makes a deep run or ends up on the outside looking in. So what about the players? How do they feel about all this? Well, some, like Wilson, seem to be more effective when given the chance, but others might be feeling the sting of limited opportunities or being miscast in schemes that don't suit their strengths. And that's a big problem because in the NFL, talent alone isn't enough. Coaching and scheme are equally vital. The fact that the defense, which should be a team's backbone, is currently one of the league's worst, suggests systemic issues that need urgent attention. Now, let's compare this situation to other teams around the league. You see franchises that have faced similar struggles, but managed to turn things around with coaching adjustments, personnel changes, or strategic shifts. The Kansas City Chiefs, for example, have been able to tweak their defense mid-season, even with a star like Patrick Mahomes leading the offense. The Cowboys, with their talent, should be able to do the same, but their current coaching approach seems rigid, perhaps even outdated. And if we look at the broader landscape of the NFL, teams that invest in flexible, innovative defensive schemes tend to be more successful over time. The question is whether Dallas can find its way out of this defensive quagmire before it's too late. With the playoffs approaching, every game becomes a must-win, and the pressure on Eberflus and the defensive staff is mounting exponentially. Fans, analysts, and insiders are all watching closely, waiting for signs of change or collapse. Now, shifting our focus to what the future holds, it's important to consider the potential adjustments and what could be done to salvage this season. Will the Cowboys consider making a coaching change at the defensive coordinator position? Or will they stick with Eberflus, hoping for a turnaround? This decision will likely depend on upcoming performances and whether the coaching staff can implement more effective schemes. Perhaps a more aggressive, blitz-heavy approach could be employed to compensate for the lack of pass rush, or maybe more zone schemes could be replaced with man coverage to utilize the personnel's strengths. In addition, personnel decisions will be under scrutiny. Will the Cowboys explore trades, free agent signings, or even draft picks to bolster their defense? Will they reconsider how they utilize players like Murray, Wilson, or others on the roster? These are the questions that will define the next few weeks. The Cowboys' front office and coaching staff are undoubtedly under pressure to evaluate their current approach and make strategic adjustments. And let's not forget the fans' perspective. Cowboys supporters are passionate, fiercely loyal, and incredibly vocal on social media. The frustration is palpable when they see their team underperforming, especially on defense, which has always been a hallmark of the franchise's identity. The hope is that this storm will pass, but the reality is that the next few games will be critical in shaping perceptions. The team's leadership, including head coach Mike McCarthy, will need to step up and provide clarity and direction. To wrap up, this story about Matt Eberflus and the Dallas Cowboys' defense isn't just another chapter in a rough season. It's a potential turning point. Will the Cowboys be able to turn their defense around before it's too late? Can they make the necessary adjustments to compete at a championship level? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a coaching and organizational crisis? The answers depend on what happens in the coming weeks. But one thing is clear. The eyes of the NFL world are fixated on Dallas right now, waiting to see how this story unfolds. This is one of those moments that could define the franchise for years to come. The decisions made now, whether to stick with Eberflus, make changes, or overhaul parts of the defense, will resonate long after this season ends. Fans, players, and analysts alike are holding their breath, hoping for a turnaround but preparing for the possibility of more disappointment. Because in the NFL, resilience, adaptability, and strategic thinking are everything. The Cowboys have the talent, but do they have the coaching and discipline to harness it? That's the question ringing loud in everyone's mind. Remember, the season isn't over yet. There's still time to write a new chapter, but the clock is ticking. Will Dallas rise from the ashes, or are we looking at a team in need of a serious rebuild? Only time will tell. But one thing's for certain, this story is far from finished, and the next few games could hold the answers to some of the biggest questions in Cowboys history. Stay tuned, because I'll be right here breaking down every move, every game, and every moment of this roller coaster ride. And now, Dallas Cowboys fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the Cowboys. Do you believe Eberflus can turn things around? Or do you think change is inevitable? Whatever you think, let's keep the conversation going. And don't forget, I'll be back soon with more updates, so stay tuned for the latest Dallas Cowboys news. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive. Your passion and voice are what make this community so special. See you in the next video.